Hello my dear students, I welcome you all to your history online class. So again in today's online class, we'll go with the continuation part of your 5th chapter from a history portion that is known as the impact of the British rule. So if you have seen the first part of the video of this chapter, there I taught you regarding what were exactly the policies and the schemes taken by the Britishers in order to exploit, in order to make the farmers or the peasants to a very down level harassment, lots of miserable life had to face by the farmer, the schemes as well as the policies such as Ijazari system followed by permanent settlement, talking about even the right to resettlement. But in today's class we'll focus that one more policies which mainly Britishers they implemented in order to take or extract lots of wealth either from cash crops, either from rabi crops or any such kind of crops which would make them very rich, and lots of draining of wealth could be done from the Indian soil. So today's topic will mainly focus for Britishers policy. So one more policies talking about the Mahalwari system which was actually established in the year of 1830, focusing that how the land revenue settlement was actually the entire state where landholder or any other village headman could collect the money from the farmer and hand over to the Britishers. A new kind of policies or the schemes that also organized in the year of 1830, mainly focusing that how Britishers again with such kind of intention or with such kind of aim they actually wanted to extract lots of wealth in the form of taxation, and how Indian people would also face a lot of miserable life, and that ultimately led to the degradation of the Indian farmer as well as the peasants. So the next topic we focus that what were exactly the effect of revenue policies on agriculture. So we have seen almost like 4 to 5 policies: Ijazari system, permanent settlement, right to resettlement, and Mahalwari settlement. So after implementing all these kinds of policy and schemes by the Britishers, what were exactly the effects on the revenue policies, mainly on the topic of agriculture? Because we all know since our ancestors from the very beginning, when India was a very good country or very like a prosperous nation, that time agriculture was one of the most important occupation or the backbone of nation, and how it also got affected, where we see that the experimentation was being done by the Britishers with the land revenue in India. Which kind of soil would be very much good for the cash crops like indigo, cotton, or which kind of soil would be very good for different kinds of production, what kind of soil, either lateral soil, alluvial soil. So all those kinds of experimentation was being done by the Britishers, and finally we see that with those kind of experimentation policies were being implemented. Second, we see that how the self-sufficiency of village was being destroyed, because it was the Britishers who forced the Indian common people, the farmer or the peasants, to cultivate whichever would make the Britishers with lots of wealth that they could also earn or earn, and that was the main system of the Britishers. So the next topic will focus that is known as the commercial policy of the British. So what is exactly the commercial policy? So based on that we see that how the Charter Act of 1813, a new kind of act, was implemented in India in the year 1813, mainly focusing that how India also would be a nation having lots of raw materials, and how the Britishers could extract from those kinds of states or from any parts of the Indian subcontinent. And with this we see that the East India Company exploited all the farmer or even the handicrafts with the artisans, because during those time handicrafts as well as artisans, they were the people who used to make lots of good production with the help of raw materials, and that also was being snatched by the Britishers. And finally it was a very miserable time for all the like a business person or any such artisans who were making their own kinds of business doing in Indian subcontinent, and the Britishers made with this act that they have to work under the English East India Company. So in that ways we see that what kind of exactly the intention the Britishers they had, extracting lots of drain of wealth from the Indian subcontinent with lots of policies, schemes, with lots of programs, and that made Indian a very like a self-sufficiency. Everything was being destroyed, agriculture and everything. Next we focus on the drain of wealth. So drain of wealth means how the wealth was being taken, it was being extracted, it was being drained in foreign country in England, and it was being said by Dadabhai Naoroji, who is also known as the Grand Old Man of India. So he has written a book known as Poverty and Un-British Rule in India, where he has emphasized that how the Britishers had done lots of exploitation to the Indian farmer, peasant, or even the Indian common people, and extracting lots of wealth, taking their nation and making India a very poor nation, and even the people had to face the drawbacks of all those kinds of drain of wealth. Next, we focus on the education policy of the Britishers. So we all know what exactly the Britishers they wanted in order to make India under their dominant part or under their downfall, and that we see that mainly the three kinds of subjects was being introduced in India during those time, talking about the Sanskrit, Persian and mathematician. But later on, when the Britishers they saw that these were the three subjects or the languages that the British Indian people they were having in their own residential area, so they thought of introducing a Western education with the new language known as English. So that we see that how English became one of the most important part, and under those things we see that Lord Macaulay, who was actually a law minister in the year 1835, we see under the Charter Act, keeping that in mind, 1 lakh rupees in education has to be spent, so that lots of colleges, lots of schools would be constructed and students that could come gain lots of knowledges, and that was one of the most important part of Britishers. And then we see the next topic known as Hood's Dispatch, which is also known as Magna Carta of the Indian education. So Hood's Dispatch mainly reflects towards the topic known as English education coming to India with a new tradition or with a new kind of knowledge, with the English as a method of learning, where lots of institutions were being constructed or it was being established, and all such kind of learning was being given in huge number. So under the Hood's Dispatch we see that Charles Hood, who was the main leader or the Governor General who was in charge, and in the year of 1854 he thought of giving a new kind of education policies on the topic of English to the Indian people, and he also had to deal with the Lord Dalhousie, who is very much famous with the Doctrine of Lapse 1846. So based on that, when a recommendation was been given by Lord Dalhousie during those time, and finally it was been given a permission that even in the Indian states, mainly in the three kinds of states or areas, Bombay, Madras or Calcutta. So these were the three states or the places where new kind of education policy would be formed. So Madras at present we know the new name of Madras is Chennai, Bombay we call it as Mumbai, and Calcutta we call it as Kolkata at present. So those three centers or places were there where education policy was been started. So we see that how Lord Macaulay as well as Charles Hood they thought of introducing a new kind of Western education in English, so that even the Indians could know what are the new kind of languages that they can also gain through lots of knowledges, ideas, philosopher and so on. And the topic known as drawbacks of education. So lots of contribution part we saw regarding Lord Macaulay as well as Charles Hood, but even there were lots of drawbacks on education in India. Why? Because when the schools, colleges were being opened or it was being established, only the high schools or the colleges were being kept in a upper level. That means lots of grants, lots of help was being given financially only to those kinds of high school and colleges. We see attention paid more only to the colleges and the high school. And second, we see that there was no such kind of attention on the women's education and the primary level schools. So that also made lots of drawbacks for the Indian people. And the third, that there were medical colleges which were being established only in the three areas or the states during those time, that was Bombay, Madras and Calcutta. So the Indian people they wanted that the medical college should open even in the huge number in all the parts of Indian states, but it was only in that three states, and for that this all comes as a drawbacks of the education policies that were being done by the Britishers. But lots of problem the women or the smaller kids, those who were going to the primary level, they had to face with lots of this disadvantage or the drawbacks. And the last topic that is known as the inspiration from philosophers. So what kind of ideas, what kind of knowledges was being gained by those kinds of philosophers like Rousseau, Voltaire, Thomas Paine to the Indian common people or the Indian masses, that how even with lots of ideas, lots of inspiration, with lots of knowledge, they could also gain a good kind of education policies which would really help the Indian people, the next generation, and India would be one of the developing country. But as they were under the Britishers, they had to make lots of program or the steps, so in order to stay away from the Britishers and their policies which would really make India a very poor and weak country. So this was overall the topic for today's class. I hope you have understood. Till then, stay safe. Thank you and God bless.